It's my pleasure to invite Professor P.V. Subrahmanyam, who's a retired from IIT Department of Mathematics, IIT Madras, to this oral history interview on behalf of Heritage Center, IIT Madras. And Professor P.V. Subrahmanyam been here for more than 3 decades here in IIT Madras, and I'm so happy to interview him on behalf of the Heritage Center. Sir, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
To the Heritage Center. And I know, I don't know whether you remember, I have been associated with you for more than 30 years.
How can I forget that? You were a student here initially,
yes,
and
sir,
then
yes,
you
sir.
were my colleague.
Yes, sir. As
Even
a student.
A fortnight back, you conducted a symposium for which I was an invited speaker. So
Yes,
how
sir.
can I forget?
Yes, sir. Still, I remember those days when I came here as a PhD student. You were in the interview committee, and afterwards you were for my core course, you were the teacher for my course on functional analysis. Still, I can remember whatever I know in functional analysis is mainly what you have taught during that period for our batch. Especially, I still remember the what you taught about reflexive spaces and their properties. Still, I remember what you taught from G.F. Simmons' topology.
Well, I don't know all the details. And thank you for your kind words about my course. That's what I can tell at this moment. I cannot recall whatever details you are conveying. Of course, functional analysis has become one of the most important branches of mathematics, both from theory point of view as well as applications.
Yeah. And sir, I just want to know, I know when I joined here you were associate professor or something, and afterwards I don't know much about your previous, I know that you have done PhD here IIT Madras under Professor P.V. Subbarao, and then before that I just want to know about your education background before you joined IIT Madras. I was born and brought up in Chennai only. My father lived for a couple of years in the CLRA quarters. He was a scientist from Central Leather Research Institute, and I studied in a school in Adayar called, at that time called Rani Mayamma High School. Later on it had become into Kumar Raja Mutaya Chetty School or something. Yes. Yeah.
Mutaya Chettiar was the patron of the school. When we studied, it was a co-educational school, and though the infrastructure was not very impressive, we had fine teachers. Mention must be made of one Miss L.K. Gangabai, who taught us English as well as geography. She used to live just opposite to the school and took great interest in educating us. She used to bring issues of National Geographic, encyclopedia, and teach us various subjects. She was herself a women's champion in chess in the city for several years, and all that gave a good academic background for many of us.
I see.
Later on, I joined the Vivekananda College in Mylapore, which had an excellent tradition in mathematics.
Yes.
I did my pre-university and then moved on to do BSc, although many of my uncles on the paternal side were chemists, and on my maternal side they were into humanities.
Okay.
So I was the first deviant opting for mathematics.
Okay.
I thought if you learn mathematics, you will know most of the sciences you can understand. That's how I ventured into mathematics. I must confess, mathematics is not my cup of tea. However, over the years, I cultivated a special liking for mathematics despite my my handicaps.
Okay.
And in Vivekananda College we had excellent teachers, and after finishing my BSc there, I didn't join the engineering courses, etc. My father also encouraged me to pursue my own line, my line of thinking. After finishing my BSc, I could have joined the MIT, Madras Institute of Technology.
Yes, there used to be a program.
At that time they had a 3-year program in engineering. I also could have joined the MSc program in Vivekananda College Mathematics department. But then one of our family friends from my maternal side, one Professor K.N. Venkatraman, who was later the head of the Department of Statistics in Madras University, he said, IIT Madras Mathematics department is rated the best in South India, why don't you join there? And then I joined. After I took the entrance exam, they conducted an entrance exam. It was locally done at that time, unlike the JAM and other exams.
Which year it was, sir?
I think it was in the year 1969.
69.
69. I did MSc here during 69-71.
71. Okay.
So at that time, Professor Nigam was the head of the department.
Okay.
Professor S.K. Srinivasan was another professor. But there were no more professors in the department. We had a young assistant professor by name Dr. K.M. Das,
Yes,
who was a student of Ziv Nehari from the Carnegie Institute of Technology. And then we had other assistant professors like Dr. K.R. Partsar, the well-known graph theoretician, Dr. R. Subrahmanyam, who was into operations research, then Dr. U.N. Srivastava, who was at that time an associate lecturer or something. And they had at that time, when I joined, revised the syllabi. So every semester we used to have 4 subjects. Okay. The lectures were from 8 to 12 in the morning, and after 12, after our lunch in the hostel, we were let free to spend the rest of the day in the library. Working out problems, looking up books and so on. So at that time the syllabi were equipoised between pure mathematics and applied mathematics. So in the first semester we had real analysis, complex analysis, then tensor analysis, and then linear algebra. In the second semester, one Dr. Jyoti Chowdhury at that time. Subsequently, she became Jyoti Das. She was a student of Titchmarsh, and then she worked in differential equation. But then later on, she moved to University of Calcutta. I also met her a couple of years back. She was teaching. She taught us differential equations, ordinary differential equations. So in the second semester we had ordinary differential equations, then measure theory, algebraic structures, and then Hamiltonian mechanics. So we had the book by Goldstein, which used to be rated very highly by physicists and others. And in the third semester, we had topology, then continuum mechanics, and then continuum mechanics, partial differential equations, and numerical analysis. And in the fourth semester, fluid mechanics, then one elective. I was again guided by Professor Venkatraman of Madras University. He said, take stochastic processes. And then I took stochastic processes, and then electromagnetic theory, and then functional analysis. So at that time the teachers, most of them were not specialists in pure mathematics, like the topics in topology, functional analysis, algebra, etc. Most of them were applied mathematicians like fluid mechanics, operations research and so on, but they read on their own and then delivered the goods. So, the process was a little difficult for both the teacher and the student. Nevertheless, they rose up to the occasion. We also hopefully did justice by satisfying their tough questions in the exams and so on. About the stochastic process, Professor Srinivasan, who was deemed an authority on applied stochastic process and probability theory, originally did not want to give that course, although many research scholars were eager to take that course.
Okay.
And then I went and represented to him, because there are only 3 students who would opt for stochastic processes. So he agreed and gave that course. See, at that time the department approach was different. So they used to set a question paper, and it was all absolute grading. You have to get 50 marks to pass the course. Otherwise, you will be finished. You will have to repeat the course. I mean, you have to rewrite the course. If you fail in that, you will have to repeat the course. It was so tough. And then there were a number of elective subjects offered in the 4th semester, including graph theory, topological dynamics, a specialization of Professor Das and so on. Here I must mention about the method of teaching or lecturing in the department at that time. See, there was no, what should I say, we didn't expect the kind of teaching we were exposed to in the colleges. There the approach was different. They used to describe a theorem and go on working out riders and problems, a number of problems to illustrate the point. Here we were all bombarded with concepts and so many theorems. Imagine the whole of Bartle real analysis was covered in 1 semester, plus Fourier series from Rudin's principles of mathematical analysis. It was really tough, and we do not know how we could understand the intricacies of various proofs, because they were all classical theorems proved by eminent mathematicians like Hein, Borel, Cantor and so on. Anyway, we have managed to survive. That is what I would put it. And the teachers, they used to refer to several books. So, for instance, late Professor K.R. Parsardi, when he taught measure theory, he initially started with Berberian, then from Halmas, then from Taylor, then from Kingman and so on. It was really very difficult for us to cope with the development of the subject, because their notations, their approaches were all different. Anyway, that is how probably that is the reason why we were asked to spend the rest of the day in the library.
And I am sure, I mean, you have a great memories, and
so it was an unforgettable program in my life, because I say, as I told you, I am not a really mathematically oriented person, and in order to understand the abstract ideas of topology and all that, I had to work throughout the day after my lunch in my own way, and I avoided going to various, I mean, I didn't go for entertainments, say films and all that. Of course.
So it was a drastic difference from your BSc time
BSc to MSc was total, I mean, it's a kind of cataclysmic change, I should say.
Well, how about nowadays for our MSc program we have a project at the 4th year, at the 2nd year, 4th semester?
No, at that time what happened was, every semester we had to appear for a Viva OC. And they used to ask questions from all the topics we had studied. It was really nightmarish, so to say.
Okay.
But fortunately, the teachers were also considerate. They understood our limitations and didn't inflict the pain, which was more unbearable than we could take.
Okay. So after your MSc in 1971, you...
Yeah. What I did was, I thought this type of mathematics which I got exposed to was too much for me, and I thought of going for other places to do PhD and so on. I was selected for an MPhil program in Madurai University. I didn't want to go for MPhil. At that time, Math Science, which was a neighboring institute, they were entertaining PhD students. So nearly 12 of us, not all from IIT, from various places joined. Unfortunately, the Math Science was funded on a quarterly basis by the state government and the Department of Atomic Energy. So they didn't expect they were expecting a huge chunk of funds, which unfortunately didn't materialize. So most of us, except one girl in pure mathematics, they were all turned out. We had to go, and unfortunately that was the end of August, and no other place you would be they would be calling for application and so on, for PhD position and so on. Anyway, I was studying at home for some time, and then in the meanwhile I used to I cultivated some people in the Ramanujan Institute, which was the University of Madras mathematics department, and I used to discuss with some people, and even while at Math Science I had got some ideas about fixed point theorems I developed, and in the December of 71, 72 I should say, I presented a paper in the Indian Mathematical Society conference at Bhopal.
Okay.
And then I came into contact with the well-known probabilist Professor K.R. Parsari, who was at that time in University of Bombay.
Oh, okay.
So he asked me to come to Bombay and join him. But then it was the time of Telangana agitation and so on. I had narrowly escaped being stranded in the Bhopal station while traveling to Chennai, and then somehow came back. And meanwhile, after encouraging me to apply to University of Bombay and all that, Professor K.R. Parsari had moved to IIT Delhi. So I looked at all these things. I thought my alma mater should be the better place, and I applied here and I was entertained here. At that time also, it was not cakewalk. There were many competitors. We had to be interviewed, and I was selected. Though I was not placed in the top rank, I got the 4th rank or 5th rank, something like that. Kesavan was also selected at that time. He was 2 years junior to me in IIT Madras. And then I was assigned Professor V. Subbarao, who wanted me to work in numerical analysis and so on. But he gave me a book to present lectures from. That was a nice book by Ortega and Reinbold on nonlinear equations and iterative methods or something like that. Other members in the group were one Dr. Jain, who then left for IIT Delhi, numerical analysis man, Dr. R.P. Agarwal, who was a postdoc at that time. He later on moved to Italy. From there he moved to US. He is active still. So we started discussing on these topics. Every alternate day I used to present from that book. It was going on for a couple of weeks. Then the great strike took place here. The hostel staff and the administrative staff had a lot of grievances, and every day they were shouting slogans. And one day it happened that they even broke the water mains and water was stopped in the hostel and a crisis blew over and we had to stop the classes, lectures. Finally, it was all sorted out. So, in the meanwhile, I was considering some more aspects of my own problem, and Subbarav was a nice gentleman. He encouraged me to pursue my own line of thinking and research, but all the time he was insisting on look for applications. I was also happy that I could get a paper published in the Journal of Approximation Theory and so on. At that time, the concept of PhD courses was different. We had 1 or 2 courses from the department. One was done by Professor Nigam. It was from Staggold's book on boundary value problems. That was the monograph which discussed weak solutions, distributional solutions of differential equations. And then another course. It was a specialized course for MSc which some teacher used to give. Then we were also asked to do one course from a sister department. So, they were even at that time thinking of interdisciplinarity. So, I took a course on singular perturbations from aeronautics department. One Professor Rajappa gave that course. They were talking about Poincare series and all that. Somehow I also scraped through that course and submitted my thesis in November 76 and then got the degree in 77.
77, okay.
So with a couple of paper publications. And then at that time the concept was either to go for postdoctoral fellow or to seek a job. I didn't want to go for a postdoctoral fellow because I feared that it might be a kind of postponing your career and so on. At that time I also had an offer of a research associateship or something like that from TAFR, but I thought taking a lectureship was far better because you gain teaching experience. Everywhere they are asking for teaching experience. At that time in the Madras University and other places, senior teachers in the colleges were encouraged to do PhD. So, under that scheme, some lecturers were sent to IIT, some to the Ramanujan Institute. So, there were leave vacancies as they were called. So, I applied for that and then joined the Loyola College of at Nugambakam. It was a very interesting experience. I taught the undergraduate students large classes. I also taught the MSc students functional analysis from Sobolov and Lusternik. That was a different textbook, different from the Simmons. And then meanwhile I had applied to various places. I got selected in the Madras University postgraduate center at Trichy. Probably I was the first person to have been appointed to a Madras University Maths department because Madras University Maths department was considered a citadel of pure mathematics. And then from there I moved over to Hyderabad Central University, which was expected to become a great center for sciences, humanities and so on. And you know that university was created to appease the Telangana agitationists and so on. Somehow it also didn't, it had lot of problems in the beginning. So again I felt my alma mater is the best place. And so I applied and got back here.
Which year you joined here?
I remember the date, 21/5/1981.
Oh, fine.
So I joined and then I taught B.Tech, MSc.
And I just want to ask you, when you joined, so the dominating subjects were like, as you said, fluid dynamics and stochastic process, and of course Professor B.V. Subbarao in numerical analysis. How you found yourself in that community? Like, Because you are totally a pure mathematics person.
Although the research of the department was focused on two streams, mainly fluid mechanics and stochastic process. Already Bhattacharya had joined the department. He was a complex analyst, and already Professor Das was there. Though he was concerned with differential equations, he was handling the bulk of the pure subjects like topology, functional analysis, and so on. So they had need for people to do teaching at the MSc level and so on. So I won't say it was not a very what should I say? It was not a very nice situation. You see, in the department, you were all left to. I mean, people were left to themselves.
Yeah, independence.
You evolve on your own.
Yeah, that
and
independence.
They don't interfere, and they gave you a lot of freedom. I in fact formulated 2 courses which were accepted.
Okay.
And it was an elective on fixed point theory. Probably that was the first course on fixed point theory, which must have been formulated in the MSc syllabus anywhere in India.
Correct.
So we had formulated. When I joined, already graph theory was being taught. Already probability theory was being taught as a core course. Okay. So some such developments have taken place, and nobody stood in the way of my proposing other courses in nonlinear analysis and so on. Already Professor Subrahmanyam has given a course on approximation theory. So the concept at that time was you do pure mathematics so that it could help the development in applied mathematics, fluid mechanics, stochastics and so on. In fact, I remember Professor S.K. Srinivasan had invited Professor Atreya, an expert in the probability and stochastic process, as a visiting professor, so that they could interact and so on. So, it was not as if the department was only pursuing applied mathematics in an exclusive way. They were open to suggestions and developments, but the initial period, the developments were in fluid mechanics and stochastic process.
How was the selection procedure, sir, those times? Now you know that since you were head of the department in the recent times, our selection procedure is like one interview, one presentation, then oral interview, all that. So that
for the faculty or
for
the
faculty.
No, it had by then become stabilized, I should say.
Okay.
Because when I joined, I was asked to give a presentation. For 10 or 15 minutes on my research topic. And then I was interviewed in the director's office.
Same procedure.
So same procedure. And probably later on they have added the faculty giving marks, this and that. Maybe at that time also it was there, but I didn't know because I was not a faculty member at that time. I was giving the presentation, and all were sitting in that presentation. All the faculty members, and maybe even other participants, other persons who had been invited for the interview.
And regarding, I have heard of your, after you joined here, I have heard of your conference, what you organized in the department, which is a mega conference, I would say, on nonlinear analysis, nonlinear analysis. So,
I see, my thinking was that already there was there was interaction with math science, especially Professor Vasudevan, Professor Ranganathan and others were interacting with Professor Srinivasan and so on. There was also a cosmologist at that time by name Prasanna and so on. So, in the applied mathematics side there was interaction. So, analysis side I thought I would initiate some symposium, and Professor Unni, at that time a professor in the math science, I invited him, gave a talk, and the venue was in one of the seminar halls of the chemistry lecture theatre.
Okay,
I think it was in 83 or 84.
84.
And the proceedings were published in our journal. At that time, the department was running a journal, the Journal of Mathematical and Physical Sciences.
Yes, sir.
It had a very illustrious editorial board.
Okay.
Professor Lakshmi Kantam, Kichanasamy, many others. Somehow it has faded over the years.
Okay. And I just want to know about your PhD guidance, sir, like your students. One paper, one of your students, Dr. Chitra, when you have done something on nonlinear complementarity problem, but I don't see many papers on this direction, though linear complementarity problem has been well studied in the last 4 or 5 decades. But this something still people are referring, whoever works on this. I have seen this, and also your recent work with your later students, like on functional equations.
See, I was specializing in fixed point theorems. Fixed point theory, you cannot say is a branch, I mean, is an independent branch of mathematics in the sense that it has, it borrows techniques and tools from several areas of mathematics. So, since its applications are vast, I naturally took interest in functional equations and optimization. One part of optimization theory heavily relies on fixed point theorems of the Kakutani type, Brouwer's fixed point theorem and so on. So, in that sense I entered a nonlinear complementarity problem. In fact, what I feel is the department should offer a core course on optimization, which is an important subject.
Now it is being considered. Now we have.
I think this is a must. Yes. And you have to also look at the current trends and accordingly reorient the syllabi. In fact, Professor Subrahmanyam conducted a seminar involving all the other departments, asking them to present their views on mathematics and application. If you have such a seminar, then there will be brainstorming and new ideas may emerge, and also you should look at the trends in top universities of the world. For example, Oxford, Cambridge, they are thinking of mathematical engineering. Stanford, for example, is thinking of mathematical engineering course and so on. So, there are also courses on mathematics education. See, IIT is a premier institute, and mathematics education program helps people learn how to teach mathematics even at the school level and so on. Now our country is facing a dearth of good teachers even at the school level. So, if we can think of such a program, it will help our basic education in the country in the long run. So, your collegium of professors should think along these lines and come up with such novel ideas. Of course, we have a nice program on industrial mathematics, but then the syllabi have to be revised and get the feedback of the students and reorient and so on. The whole thing depends on the initiative of the faculty members and so on. See, I would also like to add that I had conducted a number of conferences. When I joined in 81, Professor Das himself organized a big international conference on nonlinear analysis, for which eminent mathematicians like Cesari, Ambrosetti had come. And then I organized a national symposium on analysis. Subsequently, in 2007 or so, I organized 2005, I think, I don't remember. I organized a conference on FIM IIT conference. Then I tried to have a collaborative conference with University of Madras on fuzzy sets. So, I tried to involve other departments, other institutions also. In fact, when some professors like Avade Nagam and others were heading the department, I told them that I would like to have a one-day a workshop on calculus for our school teachers, and it was readily agreed. And when I was the executive chairman of Association of Mathematics Teachers in India, I conducted it here.
Okay.
So such programs you have to do, and already IIT has given you great opportunity to organize teacher training programs. I organized 3 teacher training programs, one on nonlinear analysis, another on fuzzy sets, and another on Fourier analysis. I think you were also associated with Fourier analysis. So these are all important aspects. And see, mathematics being a very tough subject, often repulsive for the student, you should encourage all kinds of students to take to mathematics, and you should not very harshly evaluate students, and allow them to grow in their own way, so that their interest and enthusiasm for mathematics is not stifled. See, what is more important now is that people should have a liking for mathematics. They should not abhor mathematics. So that being the approach, you should be able to attract many students at several levels.
I understand, sir. And one I just ask you one difficult question, sir. Like, you have served in IIT Madras for more than 36 years, and in that, if you divide the whole service period into 3 parts, which how do you compare your the growth of the department and your experience? For example, 12 years, the next 12 years. How do you compare?
See, when I joined as a research scholar, at that time we had a big conference, national conference. They called it ISTAM, Indian Society for Theoretical and Applied Mechanics. A huge conference.
Yes, sir.
A kind of Kumbh Mela type conference.
Yes.
So we were all asked to bring the, we were all asked to volunteer, get the delegates from the railway station, the airport, and so on. So we were trained that way. So that kind of thing, whether it is being done, and we enjoyed it actually. We didn't resent such responsibilities. And at that time, the head of the department was powerful. And I mean, over the years, due to the trickling of democratization process, people have become more demanding at the lower level, and you have to take everybody together, otherwise growth will not be possible. So you cannot do it in a very brusque way and put down opposition. If it is a good suggestion, you have to take it. And lot of, afterwards, what should I say? I mean, the first 12 years, the domination of the head of the department, professors was more, and then the power was trickling down and so on. But at no stage, you were blocked to pursue
anything.
your research.
So that independence is something great.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, you are not, troubled to do this type of research or that type. But there were suggestions, because IIT being an institute of technology, it is natural to expect that what you do has some relevance for engineering and technology. Nothing wrong in that, but they never impose such views. Only, implicit. Only made indirect suggestions, which will act in due course in your subconscious. Actually, Professor Subrahmanyam was asking me to concentrate on numerical method. Now, one of my latest students, Vijay, she was working on Newton methods. It was a very, it was in the heart of a numerical method, so to say. So that suggestion was in my subconscious for quite some time, and it bloomed. So it's a good suggestion, I should say.
Sir, and myself and my other colleagues, we really enjoyed your headship time, that period. What is your experience about that period, especially?
I should say it was not a...
what are the new things you brought? Something?
Okay, at that time I also had to head the IIT Hyderabad
As a mentor.
mathematics department.
Yes, yes.
I was not living in the campus, which would have been convenient, but due to personal problems I had to stay outside the campus. So I had to avoid going outside Chennai too many times. So what I did was, thanks to our studio, I arranged lot of seminars for those students.
Okay.
In fact, when Dr. Sivakumar from Texas A&M University gave a course here, I had it telecast over
Telecasted
there.
yes, yes.
They attended those courses, and they also took the exam. When the exam was going on here, simultaneously it was conducted there, and they enjoyed it. Lot of mathematicians who were in the city were invited to give lectures, not only here, and the lecture was immediately telecast there.
Telecasted there.
So all these things were done. And see, we have to take suggestions from all the colleagues, whether he is a junior colleague or a senior colleague. See that the mathematics is promoted in the best possible way. And regarding students, you see, you cannot experiment with undergraduate students. That is my thinking. You see, if somebody is teaching a particular topic, let us say probability and statistics, in the best possible way, do not unnecessarily disturb that arrangement and put a raw hand to do that course and make a miserable situation of a nicely going program. Of course, people also have to be trained. So how to do that? So what I did was, I associated with each teacher, a senior teacher who has taught the subject several times, a young faculty who has not taught it, so that he gains confidence and there is interaction, so that subsequently he can take over. But I am not sure whether that worked out all right, because it was becoming like this. You split the course into two halves. The easier half was given to the rock faculty, while the tougher one was taken care of by the more experienced faculty. But unfortunately, people thought half plus half plus half is more than 2, and this kind of problem led naturally to the collapse of the program. So that experiment didn't succeed.
Okay. Sir, and one more thing I just want to ask. You are the last person who used to consider something like the classical analysis, like summability theory, and all that. He used to refer the books of Blumenthal and all that. Now nobody is using or talking about those topics.
See, like every subject, mathematics also has its fashions and so on.
Fine.
So if people are interested in such topics, there must be journals to publish. If there are no journals, what to do? In my time, it all clicked. Now I cannot say that you study distance geometry or some other topic.
Correct.
Of course, you can pursue it as a passion and so on, but we cannot inflict it on others who are especially growing up in a career and all that. So it all changes. See, nowadays even departments like institutes like Oxford, they are thinking of industrial mathematics, mathematical engineering and things like that. They are thinking of a program in which actuarial mathematics, a bit of statistics, all these things are clubbed together, data analytics, all those things. So you have to be alive to the changes in the academic world and also train our students accordingly. After all, globalization cannot be wished away now. So you have to train the students not only for the local consumption but also for the global requirements. So it's a tough problem. I don't think the problems have become easy now. They have become more complex. thank God that I have come out of it. And you are facing all these complicated things.
I have one question to both of you. You mentioned about the journal which was started by the mathematics department. Is it continuing now?
It is with aerospace department. It went to aerospace department. We went to aerospace department.
Oh, that journal is being
Yeah.
I see.
Now there is a committee which is managing that, not regular like
I know that
what used to be.
was Subrahmanyam of
Yes.
aeronautics.
And Swaminathan was
Yeah,
in
that-
charge.
No,
Yeah.
Subrahmanyam.
Yes,
took
yes,
over.
yeah,
DS.
that was 20 years back or something like that.
Yes.
Now, is the journal still coming?
It's not. It is still there, but not
Sir,
in the regular issues.
No, we do not, I do not know because I am no longer associated.
I know. No, I'm asking.
Yes, sir. It is the journal is still there,
Ah,
but not the regular issues. Like when the number of issues per year is reduced,
I see.
and it is managed by the engineering departments.
committee.
Yes, there is a committee managing that.
Another thing is, since you have joined very early, in the initial stages, when those who were working in differential equation, all that, they used to say they had to manage all the calculations with
Facet machines.
facet calculator. Do you have any facet calculators in your department?
No, we don't have. Have
Can you find out, because
Yeah,
we
yeah.
wanted to, it's being a heritage center,
Heritage
we
center,
want to
okay,
have at
okay.
least one model of
Oh,
facet
okay.
calculator. We have asked various departments.
I don't think
Engineering
even in your
department
period also there
used
was
to
no
use
such.
this before the computers came in.
In
Okay.
fact, for our numerical analysis course,
Yeah.
we were taught how to use a slide rule
Okay,
and
okay.
also facet
Yeah,
calculator.
facet
Yes.
Slide rule maybe somebody might be having,
Mm-hmm.
but facet calculator is what we were interested in.
I am told that the facet calculator company itself modified it
I
into a
know,
typewriter.
That's the
And
reason why you are looking for
That one.
looking
Okay.
for any model.
For
as
heritage
somewhere.
center.
even in my tenure here, maybe even by early 90s, the machine was completely,
Yeah,
I mean, it was not there in the department. They must have condemned it. You have a condemnation committee in the department.
Yeah.
So it is all gone.
Another thing, you said that you worked or you applied for the Institute of Advanced Mathematics, Madras University.
Ramanujan Institute. No, I used to interact.
Who was the director then?
At that time,
Bhanamurthy?
Bhanamurthy was the director.
Okay. Now, Bhanamurthy's brother was working.
Yeah, he was in Shankara,
Shankara.
Dr. Shankara.
So how many years did he serve here?
I think he was, I should say, when I joined, he was there when I was a research scholar.
I see.
So
What was his field?
he was doing relativity.
I see. But of course, later he took science
Yes,
and all that.
right.
I know about that one. So, and another thing I wanted to ask.
5 minutes.
You wrote an article or
minutes.
something about Subrahmanyam in that after his demise.
Yeah, I mailed
I saw it in our retirees.
mail.
So you please
Yeah.
can address.
No, if you want, I can show, I had collected some photographs.
Yeah, we would be very interested.
So I conducted, see, I'm not trying to advertise myself.
No.
I wanted to give some aspects of our activity. So as I told, I was interested in organizing many conferences, workshops and so on.
Definitely.
So I organized an analysis symposium on the teaching of analysis, because it should be interesting not only for students but also for teachers who may not be analysts themselves but may be teaching. So I invited people from Ramanujan Institute, MadScience, and they all gave the talks, and I even brought out the proceedings, and I had got some snaps. So these are some snaps.
We have
I organized a symposium on teaching of analysis. I had even brought out the I think it was the time when Aude Nayagam was the head of the department. I think it should have been around 2006, 7 or 8 or something like that. So, you also have a photograph of Professor Nigam Patsardi and others.
Yeah, that also interesting.
So, that is how maybe you can keep them.
Oh, thank you.
And these are the books. See, for the QIP short term, I don't know some. This was in the year, I think it was in 1997.
Yeah.
So, we conducted a short term course.
Non-linear.
You can leave it.
This is the collaborative conference, interdepartmental. I collaborated with Dr. Mohan of Civil Engineering on fuzzy sets along with Madras University.
Okay.
And this is the first mathematical symposium which was brought out by that journal.
JMPS.
Yeah, 1984.
Yeah, this is what you were talking about.
And then this was about 2008. I organized the Ramanujam Mathematical Society. I mean, Ramanujam Day celebrations were already going on. So, we brought out the lectures as a booklet after refereeing and so on.
I want to ask one more.
This is an international conference held in IIT Madras with the Forum for Interdisciplinary Mathematics and Stella Maris College.
Okay. Sir, I
want
wanted
to
to.
know whether the Nobel laureate, Professor Chandrasekhar, astrophysicist, have visited your department?
Yes, yes.
He has visited.
Yeah.
When was it?
87.
Do you have photographs of that?
We have to ask Professor Maji.
Please. Oh, Maji, is it?
Yeah, Maji must be there.
Oh, we will find out.
He was the organizer.
Oh,
No, we had the centenary celebrations of Srinivasa Ramanujan.
So, he
So, at
visited
that
the-
time he had come.
Professor Chandrasekhar.
Yes, sir.
Chandrasekhar had come and given a talk in
In
the
the CLT.
auditorium of Madras University. I do not know whether he had come here. Many
had come
eminent
here.
mathematicians had come.
I was told he came only to mathematics department.
Yes,
he
yes.
gave a lecture in CLT.
Yeah.
And very much earlier, before he got a Nobel Prize, I had heard him AC college. That was
Okay,
the 60s. So he never visited. So I came to know that he used to visit mathematics department. That's why I asked him. And another thing I want to know was number of monographs were produced from your department. Say published by
Different.
famous the German publisher Springer Verlag.
Springer. Yes, sir.
Do you have copies of that?
Yes, sir. Every faculty they have copies.
So, if anything, because
Yes, sir.
before it is lost,
Yes, yes.
so I very much wish that you send it
Sure,
to the
sure,
Heritage
sure,
Center.
sure.
We would
I will.
like to preserve it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So we can
Yeah, just finally, I end this with a couple of questions that I wanted to ask. What is your interaction with this forum? That's interdisciplinary forum for you are active. Still, I think you are still active. You are a president of that
Yeah,
society.
I was president for 2 terms.
Okay.
See, Forum for Interdisciplinary Mathematics is an organization which is registered at Delhi. It was started by a couple of Delhi University professors, and many eminent mathematicians had been associated with it, including the great statistician Professor C.R. Rao. In fact, some IIT directors had also been presidents, especially in electrical engineering. I don't remember. We have recently started a series, Springer FIM series, for promoting publications approved by Forum for Interdisciplinary Mathematics and so on. So 3 volumes have come. In fact, 1 volume just arrived today at my home address. Because I am the chief editor, they are sending copies to me. So I just received a copy on game theory proceedings conducted by one Dr. Lalita and somebody. So, we have brought out about 4 monographs, and 2 or 3 more are in the pipeline, and this forum is doing promoting interdisciplinary mathematics. It is concentrating on operations research, graph theory, combinatorics, decision sciences, and so on. The only problem is mathematics has developed so vast. Any beginning student will be will be puzzled how to get into research level mathematics in the least time. This is a big problem, because methods are, so many methods are developed. Which method he has to concentrate on so that the problem can be tackled, and so on. So, forming the right syllabi and taking him to the research level in the shortest possible time, these are all challenging problems. I am told that in the US it just takes 3 or 4 years for a student to gain his PhD, but whether we can do it here so that this PhD student thesis is of a decent level, these are all questions. And of course, basic mathematical education must be strengthened, otherwise you will not be able to attract people for this subject, which has become invasively pervasive.
Sir, and finally I just ask you one question. You said you have lived very short period in the campus.
Yes.
What is your experience about IIT campus? We as faculty, we are enjoying the present B-type quarters, all that.
No, campus life was excellent, no doubt about it.
Okay.
But I had built a house in the outskirts of the city, and the tenants will not pay me the rent, and there became a situation when I would lose the house itself. So, I had to frantically get out and stay there. Another problem is the campus. You have the people here are more prone to bronchial infections because of the pollen in the air and so on. One of the chief medical officers has told me that the bronchial infection rate here is 100% more than in the city. I think a couple of years or months back I saw some research from a biotechnology department professor saying that certain type of fungi are present in the atmosphere due to trees or something like that. I don't remember the details. So, my daughter developed wheezing problems and so on. So, I thought that was another reason for me to get out of the campus and so on. Campus life is excellent, no doubt about it, because any time you can go to the department and work and so on. But of course, with the availability of laptop and so on, it should not be a problem for a mathematician to live outside and pursue his research.
So, with this, I say I will once again I thank you for your visit here, sir, and I thank the organizer of Heritage Center for giving me this opportunity to interview Professor P.V. Subrahmanyam. Thank you very much, sir.
You are welcome, and it's my pleasure to have participated.
Thank you, sir.